All right, ladies, welcome to this episode of the Joyful Scaling Podcast. Today, we're talking about financial wholeness with an absolutely beautiful lady. Her name is Amie, and I'm going to ask her to say her name in just a bit when I'm done with the introduction, because maybe then you'll understand why I couldn't pronounce it or even try to. But Amie is a money coaching extraordinaire. She is a certified flourishing life coach and a qualified associate financial planner. She's the founder of a company called You Insure, where they focus on listening and learning about your why and what you value. Like, she's not your average financial planner. I mean, she's just amazing. I met her on LinkedIn, fell madly in love, especially after we had a chat. I mean, you're going to love this. Okay. So Amie's goal in her work with every client is to equip them with a roadmap that empowers them to financially finish well and experience this concept we're going to spend some time talking about again, financial wholeness. She is the founder and host of the Sharing the Manual podcast. But ladies, buckle your seats, because Amie's passion for her work and for your good runs deep. So let's say hello to Amie.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, my pleasure. And would you please say your whole name so they can see why I couldn't do it?
Right, it is so bad. Everybody calls me Amie U, but it's actually Amie Valenzuela. So it is a mouthful.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, now they get it. Okay.
Yes, understandably so. Nobody says it. It's just Amie U or AJ for short.
Yeah, anyway. So, all right. So listen, Amie, money is on the table. And money is a hot topic, no matter if the economy is doing great or the economy right now is not doing so great. But you, as I read your website, you really start with your clients' money stories. Yeah. So I would love for you to just dive in right there and tell us about our money stories, because sometimes we may not even realize we have a money story.
And we often don't. Like, I didn't know about this concept until how many years ago? But if we think about it, even in life, we really look and filter how we do life through four lenses, right? What we've been told, what we've learned, what we've experienced, and what we believed. Now, whether any of that's good or bad, we have these filters. And that's how we do life. And so when I meet with clients, I normally ask them, what was money like for you as a kid? And that's big, because oftentimes maybe, there was a scarcity mindset. Maybe there was an abundance mindset. Maybe there was financial abuse. Maybe there was money trauma. Like, there's a lot of things that can be back there that we haven't unpacked. But also, what is your first memory of money? Now, when I ask this question, I absolutely love it, because the amount of detail that people can get into, it's phenomenal. And, here's a prime example. My first memory of money was when my mom and dad lost a fair amount of money, and it changed the whole trajectory of our life. But it also changed how I lived out my finances. And so when I first learned this whole money story concept, I asked my daughter at the time, when she was 16, like, what's your first memory of money? And she's like, Mom, it's when Dad passed away and we lost everything. Now, if I look at her money habits, she's had a job for many years now, since she was 14. She is a hoarder, like through and through. And so she's got this scarcity mindset that the other shoe's going to drop. And it has actually led her to walk away a certain way with her money. And saving is good. Kid you not. I love the fact that she's a saver, but there's got to be a balance with it, right? So I've had to almost work with her and retrain her mindset when it comes to, that's not the norm. There's a healthy balance with it. So it can go both ways, good or bad, when we look at your money story. And we really have to kind of dismantle some of those old belief systems that we have about money, and we have to rebuild the truth. And we have to live that out.
Okay. Wow. So much to unpack there. We could talk for hours.
It's true.
Yeah. I was thinking about, this is so funny. I was thinking about my first encounter with money. Like, what do I remember?
Yeah.
And it's the tooth fairy leaving a nickel under my pillow. Like, okay. Yeah.
And what more about that? Tell me more about that.
I just remember being excited that I had a freaking nickel. And, and also I have to say that some of my friends had an allowance. So I remember when I was like 8 or 10 saying, can I have an allowance? And I don't think mom and dad ever gave it to me. And I don't remember being upset about it because I felt like I had everything I needed, but because I was raised poor, I know there's a bad story that I've overcome. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and we all have them. We all have these stories, and sometimes it takes a little bit of going a little deeper and a little deeper to actually find it. Because subconsciously we try to bury that stuff. We really do. We try to like just kind of know there's nothing there, but you're never going to overcome and reach your financial finish lines until you actually unpack some of those things. And so that's why I go there first, because if we can master our emotions, we can master our money and we can master our life. Because every financial decision is driven from an emotion.
Wait, say that statement. That's a huge aha for me.
Yeah. So all of our decisions, even in life, not just our money, drive from an emotion. So if we can master our emotions, we can master our money. Think of dominoes, right? It's a dominoes effect. Every financial decision you make has a dominoes effect. So let's say you say yes to something today, it's going to mean you might have to say no to something else tomorrow. So do you want to say yes to that today? So I may want to go buy a vehicle. Here's a great example. I may want to go buy a vehicle. If I go buy that vehicle and I take on that loan to take on that vehicle, I may have to say no to a vacation or no to something else later because I've now taken on this vehicle. So there's always a ripple effect. There's always a dominoes effect to any financial decision. And it's normally an emotion that's driving it.
Wow. Because I can tell you that years ago, when I married my husband back in 2015, we went to a financial planner. She never asked these kinds of questions. And frankly, I didn't think she was very good. But anyway, like there was not much there. It was just, what do you make? What does she make? What do you do for a living and whatever? I mean, and how much do you have now? It wasn't really a deep convo. So this is really interesting how you work with your clients. But you mentioned that we have to dismantle these old stories. Like how does that happen?
So it's deep work. It truly is. We really want to go and find the root of it. So yes, your numbers are really important, but the root of how you got there is really important as well. And so when we have to dismantle, we have to figure out what is the lie that you're believing, for one. What is the behaviors and the patterns that you have, and what's the driving force of them? And normally it is an emotion. And this is the deep work that not everybody wants to go and do. It's because when we start to look at our behaviors and we find the emotion that is driving the behavior with money, there's always something deeper. And it always stems from something further, deeper and deeper. And we keep going there. And once we figure out what that thread is, it's normally a thread that is actually throughout most of our life in many areas. Now we have to figure out, okay, how do I take that thread and that lie that's there, that's making me have these behaviors, and how do I dismantle it and place it with truth? What is the truth to replace that lie? Yeah. And we replace it with the truth. And it's like these neurological pathways in our brain, right? If you're thinking about driving on a gravel road, I'm a farm girl, so driving on a gravel road, you get caught in some of the ruts. And then you want to forge your own way and you want to go on this new path on this gravel road, but those ruts keep pulling you back in because they're deep, they're ingrained. The same is true for our patterns and our behaviors with money. They're deeply ingrained roots in neurological pathways in our brain. So we have to rewire it. And that takes a lot of practice and work and intention and, mantras and declarations and declaring what it is that we want and how we're going to get there. And let's be honest, it takes accountability. You need the right people on your bus to get you where you want to go. And you need people to hold you accountable. And there's a difference between truth and kindness. So kindness is saying what you want to hear, but truth is saying the hard thing because I want you to do better. I want you to reach those goals.
Wow, so good. Can you give us, because I really do want to spend a lot of time talking about financial wholeness, but this is so good. Now, I'm the type of person, Amie, where I need to really pull this together in a way that I will remember it and think about it further. For me, is I kind of need to hear an example. So can you give me an example of one of your clients' money stories and a little bit more of the work and the truth that ultimately was uncovered?
So, I interviewed a lot of people in regards to this to see how people how willing are they to talk about money and emotion. And when I interviewed these people, I could not believe what they shared with me. So one person had shared with me that they remember the fights mom and dad would have about money. And that stuck with them like you would not believe. And so all of a sudden, this person believed the lie that having a lot of money was a bad thing and that being broke was a good thing, but it was almost twisted in a way, and that it was very manipulative. So they believed that's how you live out your money. That, you know, if you have lots, you're manipulative automatically. You don't even get to justify, you know. And so all of a sudden, when we were unpacking some of this, they had a lot of aha moments. They're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that I still held on to that. I did not even know that I remembered my mom and dad fighting about money. And that I believed, and I believed that if you have a lot, you know, somebody said this once that there was an acronym, Rich Bastards, RB, so Rich Bastards. And when the person told me about, that's what the mom would say with people that had money, they would call them RBs, and it was Rich Bastards. And I was kind of like, oh my goodness. But because he heard that over and over and over again, it actually kind of became something he believed. Because remember, we have these filters, right? We have what we've learned, what we've been told, what we've experienced, what we've believed. Well, when you hear something over and over again, you start to believe it. And so he believed that people with money were not good people. Not the case at all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, that is so crazy, because my parents fought all the time. They had no money. And I remember as a little girl, well, I'll be really real. My twin sister and I would sometimes hide behind the couch, hugging each other and crying because they just screamed so much. But, you know, she and I both are like, we're not going to live like this. I am not going to worry about money. Money will be what money is. So that's what I tell myself. But I wonder what's really going on deep down inside.
But there's that scarcity mindset sometimes that creeps up within us. Because if you have experience like you have, right, where you're like, there's fighting about money, there's manipulation, there's some trauma there, it's scary. Yeah. And so the minute that you can get into a financial position that you're unsure of, you might all of a sudden, you know, have some things come up that you're like, why am I spending this way? Or why am I doing this? Why is this happening? And it can come from that. So cool. Another example, here's a really good example about emotional spending. And so, you know, I have this person, we'll just call it ours. It's my husband, actually, when I remarried, and he decided the other day to go buy a truck without talking to me. He's got a line of credit, bought a truck, comes home and didn't tell me about it, but he tells me, and I was like, oh my goodness, you know, I talk about money and emotions. Why did you buy this truck? Like, why did you not communicate with me? And then we got to the bottom of it, and it was, he was feeling empty and void. So it was a retail purchase. It was retail therapy. And now that he's looked back, he's like, oh my goodness, Amie, I do this all the time. I'm like, I know, I've noticed. We need to unpack that some more. And as we kind of did unpack a little bit, and of course, it's a little bit harder when it's your spouse, because, you know, but we've come to realize that there's a lot of self-worth that's tied to his money that he makes at his job. And so as a man, his identity is tied to money, that's his worth. So then that comes to the vehicles, it comes to purchases, it's retail therapy, it fills that void that perhaps they have. But the real work needs to happen down deep to know that you're enough, and no amount of things is going to make you feel like you're enough.
Wow. That's so interesting that men have it too. Because I often
right?
I often think that we, because of, like, you know, it's so funny, when I married the father of my children, who's now deceased, I always made more than him. A lot of the time I made twice as much as him because I'm a lawyer and he wasn't, you know, I mean, that's just the way it was. And it was kind of sort of an issue with us. But I don't know, like it didn't seem to me to be as big of an issue, money generally, for the men that I've known versus the women. Have you found that?
You know, so I used to think that, okay, only women talk about money in this way and only women feel these things. And then I did a lot of research and I interviewed a lot of men and women, and we feel the same thing. The difference is that women are given the space to talk about it, whereas men aren't necessarily given the space to talk about it. And when I ask these men, have you ever been asked these questions? They're like, never. Nobody's asked us about money in this way before. And I was like, well, how, like, are you willing to talk about it in this way? And some of them were like, it's kind of, you know, because there's so much, we all have shame and guilt and embarrassment about money.
Mm.
We all do. We all carry it. And it shows up in different ways.
Mhm.
And if you don't get to the root of it, it's going to keep showing up. And it shows up in our spending. It shows up in our habits. It shows up at the end of the day when we're looking at our bank account saying, oh my goodness, why can't I figure this out? Or what's happening? Or when we hit ceilings as businesswomen, we hit ceilings. Yeah, well, we're hitting that ceiling because there's something still there that has a root.
Oh my goodness. I think I might want to bring you into my mastermind. And would you do like a workshop? This is really intriguing. Okay.
I love educating and I love inspiring people to see money in a different way. Numbers are really important. I get that, but let's start shifting it a little bit, because if we can master this, the numbers are the easy part. This is the hard part.
Wow, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, we'll let that sit on the shelf and we'll percolate in that. I want to get to this phrase, financial wholeness. Like, what is it? And why do we need to know about it?
There's so much buzz about, your mental wellness and your wholeness. And you think about financial planning and finishing well financially. And that was one of my phrases that I love, finishing well financially. But then I was like, wait a second. There's more to finishing well than just numbers. And that's why I want it to be a wholeness. And so when I and I Googled wholeness, what does it even mean? This is what I found for financial wholeness. When all aspects of your money are working together for your greatest good, your biggest benefit, and your richest life. Now, I love it because
sign me up.
and it's true. But let's talk about this for a second. If we want financial wholeness, we have to really get real about, okay, well, where are our finish lines? What is enough? What's enough? And where are we content? Because then we can do reverse engineering.
Okay.
Instead of falling into what's happening in the world and striving and, wanting what the Joneses have and competing and perfectionism and wanting more, and having this feeling of entitlement, how about we just figure out what our enough is? Live within that and reverse engineer things and have contentment, because and contentment is a choice. It's a choice. So it's also a choice to have financial wholeness, because it comes down to, you have to choose how you're going to live out your finances and what's going to grab a grip of you and what's not.
Wow, that's so good. And you know me, so you know that I love the idea that your life is the result of the decisions that you make. Like, everything is a decision. You can decide to be overwhelmed by all of this right now, ladies, or you can decide to say, you know what, this is new. I'm smart. I'm deciding that I'm going to listen back to this again and absorb it.
But it's learning and unlearning. So learning is key, but we also have to unlearn. And that's where the dismantling is, right? We have to unlearn and dismantle some of the things we were taught or that we picked up as a filter throughout our whole entire life.
Yeah. So how does financial wholeness, I guess, is as you're working with clients, besides this unpacking and getting rid of the old and bringing in the new, are there other aspects to financial wholeness as it relates to your work with your clients?
So I have a model that I walk people through, and it's live, give, grow. It's not mine. It's Dr. Ron Blue, Mr. Ron Blue himself. He's a phenomenal leader in the industry, and it's really live within your means, give to causes that you care about, you owe your taxes, and you owe your debt. Think about this for a second. If you have taxes to pay, guess what? That means you've had provision. So how about we start paying our taxes a little bit happily, joyfully, because it is a sign of provision. And then grow. We always need to make sure we're thinking about our future income needs, because we're going to need something in retirement. Now, I've taken that further, and I've taken that into a life mantra, because I believe that if we live as if someone else is writing a book about us, we're going to live well. We're going to live our best life, right? And then live your best life as if someone was writing a book about you. Give compassion, grace, forgiveness to others, but also yourself. And that's almost the hardest one.
I think so. Yeah.
And then O, you owe it to yourself and your loved ones to show up and give your best yes. Grow, you're always growing and learning. So that live, give, O, grow applies to your money, but it also applies to your life.
Wow. Wow.
It's like a secret sauce. I put it on everything.
It really is. It's so good. And I saw on your website, you're talking about creating a money masterpiece. So is that really what all this is all about? Like the financial wholeness and this mantra of live, give, oh, grow, all of it creates this masterpiece of your life, the money aspect of it. But not only that, I mean, I'm correcting myself. This is really wholeness. It really is. It's financially based, but it impacts every part of your life.
Well, and it always will. Everything in our life is actually intertwined. So our emotions, our money, you know, our physical, our diet, our work, our career, like everything is actually intertwined. So when we can start getting a grip on certain aspects, and then all of a sudden we're going to see everything else shifting and changing. So I'm building out. So this is pretty cool. I'm actually super excited about it. And you know how there's Bible studies and you can do Bible studies and you gather and you have this booklet and you're filling some blanks in and you're referencing and you're talking to other women about it and you're coming together and you're being honest and real and showing up. Mm-hmm. So I have this idea that we need to have workshops, workbooks that are like that are designed in that way. And so I'm building one out that has 8 different sections, you know, and one of them is money, but it's where you're going to gather with other people so you're not doing this alone. Because the minute we're alone and we're kind of working through some of our junk, like we're looking at our shame and our guilt, there's nobody there to say, hey, me too. So then we can kind of spiral. But if we're doing it with other women and holding space for one another and journeying together doing it, we realize we're not the only ones. We can learn from one another. Sharing the manual, which is a tagline to my business, is because our stories, if we have the courage to share them, become manuals for other people.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that. And you know, it's so true because the more coaching that I get, that I invest in for me, the more I see how the way we think impacts everything. And the more I realize that our brain doesn't want to work hard. So that I think if we had a workbook alone, it would be hard. It would be easy rather to say, oh, I think I'm going to skip that one. Yeah, I'm going to definitely skip that one, you know, as opposed to having someone lead
community.
Yes, it's so important.
Having the community to go through it. And it is big. And so because I was making this book on so many aspects of life, I've actually pulled out just the money portion. And I'm like, okay, we're going to start with this portion first because it's so big, right? Like it's so far I've got 300 pages. Like there's a lot to it. So we're going to do bite size, I think, and just look at money. How can you master your money? How can you figure out what that looks like for you so you can finish well and be content and have this wholeness? Because money, emotions and money kind of drive everything else, right? And if emotions and money are good in the home, guess what? Then all of a sudden communication, relationships, partnerships are going to be better, kids' relationships. And let's kid you not, the kids are watching us like you would not believe. I have 3 of them. So like more is caught than taught because like, yeah, when they can spit back to me some of my sayings and I'm like, oh, you mean you were listening?
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, uh-oh, I said that. Whoops.
Right. And exactly. So how do we teach our kids? Well, guess what? They're watching us. So how about we start living it out first so that way we're being good role models for them so that they can follow suit. Right. And they're watching us and they're seeing that we're learning and that we're taking it seriously and that we're dismantling. Well, guess what? If we're doing it and they're seeing us do the work, they're going to do it too.
Yeah.
They just naturally are.
That is so good. And it hits home. I'm going to be really real for a second here. My ex, my father of my kids, was kind of cheap. And I am very, I will say, frugal with my money as well. Like I save it. And then when it's vacation, I will go crazy with it. I don't tell me I can't do anything because I've saved because I want to go crazy and go out to eat and buy whatever, you know, I don't go crazy, but I mean, that's kind of my mentality. Yeah. But when I saw my kids last weekend, I went to visit them, 2 of my 3 boys, and they live so simply. And I go, guys, your sneakers are looking a little rough. Go buy a new pair of sneakers. And then, I don't know, it's like God talked to me. It's like, okay, Jude, what are you doing? So it was really, and I almost wanted to cry because I'm like, guys, if you see me doing this, call me out next time, but I will not wear sneakers that look like that. So please don't you either.
But this is the thing. Ask them, what is your first memory of money? Because
Yeah.
I'd be curious, Judy, what is their first memory? Are they going back like you have and remembered different things in that relationship and how money was? Because maybe they are, and that's causing them to be that way. Right? Because it was causing my daughter to do the same thing because she thought the other shoe was going to drop. She was so scared to even spend money because dang, she's seen us lose it all. Right? So without even knowing it, this happens subconsciously. And that is what is so hard about this work, is because you really have to start going layer after layer, peeling back that onion that everybody hates to talk about, but it's true.
Yeah.
Because we don't know that we have these things happening behind the scenes. And so that's a great question to ask your boys, because I'm curious to see if there's something that they remember that you're not even aware of.
Yeah. I think I'd probably cry.
Yes. Oh yeah. Like I have cried so many times when I've realized how I have messed up, or how I've trained my kids wrong, or how I've done things that I've absolutely, like I remember doing mother heart once and father heart. And when I realized what I held on to from my parents, and we do the best we can with what we know, but when we know better, we can do better. Like Maya Angelou has that beautiful quote. And I tell my kids this all the time. And when I own that, I'm sorry, we need to pivot. I taught you wrong. I was wrong in teaching you that way. We need to go this direction instead. That is big. And when the kids can see us do that, that's a big lesson.
Yeah.
My kids know where I've messed up with money. They know where I've used it as a numbing tool. They know where I've retail therapy, thinking that I could, when their dad passed away, I was like, let's go on a trip. I wanted to not remember. I wanted to just have fun.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that would help them grieve, because we were so busy and doing different things, so we wouldn't remember. So we didn't have to feel the pain of it all. Right?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I mean, and yeah, so things are done with the best of intentions. They may or may not be right or best for our loved ones. This is so good. I can't believe this.
But that's where we got to give grace. We got to give grace to ourselves, because you don't know what you don't know. But if you know, then you can do better.
And we should. And that's convicting thought for me, that when you know that what you're doing, as reflected by my son's sneakers, that I've got to help them get to a better place, financial wholeness, then I would be remiss if I didn't take steps to make sure that happens. So thank you for that. So as we wrap up, where can the ladies find you, hook up with you, and learn more about this whole going deep to rewrite our money stories?
Absolutely. So my website is youinsureinc.ca, as well as I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram. So youinsureinc.ca. And they can find me there, or they can send me an email, and by all means, like include that too in the podcast where they can reach me.
Absolutely. I'll drop all of that down below. Well, I mean, I'm just so intrigued. Okay. So if there is one best next step for us, besides asking us what's our first memory of money, and kind of looking at that, what would be the first step without a professional like you to look at the answer and say, okay, I need to X? Like, is there I'm sure there's probably not a simple answer.
And there's not really a simple. I think the biggest answer is get the right people on your bus. And so when I say get the right people on your bus, you need to have, a lawyer, an accountant, an advisor, money coach that are all working collaboratively together for your best interest. And that's the thing, it's not a cutthroat world. We need to work collaboratively. Everybody needs to be on the same page, knowing where your why is and why you want to get there. And then let's make it happen. And accountability on both parts, right? You know, if you want somebody else to show up, you got to show up too. You got to do the work. It is work.
Mhm.
Everything in life is going to be work for us.
Mhm.
We have to give our best. So give our best yes. That's my best advice. Give your best yes to everything in your life, your family, your loved ones, you know, your work, give your best yes to your
I love
money.
that. I love that. And I will also say, when you say this stuff is work, again, it goes back to one of my favorite words, decide. Decide that it may be work, but it is so worth it.
My daughter loves this saying. She's like, choose your heart. And I'm like, say that. And so I always like challenge my kids a little bit. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, being skinny is hard, but being bigger is hard. Being unemployed is hard, but being employed is hard. Being married is hard, but being single is hard.
Wow,
being poor is hard, but being rich is hard. So choose your damn hard. Choose it.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good. Amie, thank you. This has been, I mean, my brain is still floating around. I can't wait to listen back to this. So thank you, Amie, for sharing all of your wisdom and just amazing.
It went so fast. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
All right. You're welcome. And ladies, thank you for listening. And if you have loved this episode, leave a rating and a review. It means so much. And do not hesitate to reach out to Amie, because she is an absolute joy. The beautiful lady that you just heard is the beautiful lady you will get on the other end of wherever you reach out to her. So once again, thanks, Amie. Thank you, ladies, for listening. And we will see you next time.
Bye.